The sun had just begun to rise over the quiet suburban neighborhood. Soft golden rays filtered through the tall oak trees, casting gentle shadows on the sidewalks. Birds chirped cheerfully in the distance as if celebrating the start of a new day. David Johnson, a single father in his late 30s, stepped out of his small house with a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and his daughter Emma's little backpack in the other. The crisp morning air felt refreshing against his skin, carrying the faint scent of dew-covered grass and blooming flowers. David took a deep breath, enjoying this peaceful moment before the chaos of the day began. He always cherished these mornings with Emma. Since the passing of his wife 2 years ago, mornings like these had become their little ritual, a quiet time to share before school, before work, before the world demanded their attention. Emma, his 6-year-old daughter, was already wearing her favorite pink jacket, her small brown eyes bright with curiosity and mischief. She tugged gently on his hand, eager to get to the truck. "Daddy, can we stop by the bakery on the way?" Emma asked, bouncing slightly on her tiny feet. David chuckled, ruffling her soft brown hair. "If we have time, we can get some muffins. But first, let's make sure we get to school on time." Emma pouted playfully but let go of his hand and skipped beside him. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of stillness that made every sound, like the hum of a passing car or the flap of a bird's wings, stand out. David noticed every detail, from the way the morning mist clung to the grass to the way sunlight sparkled on the edges of the flower petals. He loved watching Emma notice these small things too. As they approached the end of the driveway, David spotted something unusual. A woman was standing beside her car, looking frustrated and worried. The vehicle had its hood up and she seemed to be inspecting the engine with a furrowed brow. David's first instinct was to keep walking. They were already running a little late, but something in the woman's posture told him she needed help. Her brown hair was pulled back loosely, and her blue sweater was speckled with tiny drops of morning dew. David exchanged a glance with Emma, who immediately noticed the woman too. "Daddy, look. That lady's car is broken," Emma whispered. David nodded. "I think she needs some help," he said softly. Then he turned to the woman and called out, "Excuse me, do you need some help with your car?" The woman looked up, relief washing over her face. "Oh yes. I don't know much about cars and it just stopped working. Thank you so much for asking." Her voice was warm, tinged with worry. David smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry. I'm happy to help. I'm David and this is my daughter Emma," he said, nodding toward the little girl. Emma waved shyly. "Hi," she said, her small voice barely audible. The woman smiled at her. "Hello, Emma, I'm Emily. Thank you for helping me today." David walked closer to the car, rolled up his sleeves, and examined the engine. The problem was immediately apparent. A loose battery cable was preventing the engine from starting. He set his coffee aside carefully on the sidewalk and began working, his movements precise and confident. Emma watched with wide eyes, fascinated by the way her father's hands moved expertly, twisting and tightening the connections. "Daddy, what's he doing?" Emma asked innocently. David glanced at her and smiled. "I'm just fixing the car so it can run again," he explained simply. Emma nodded, still watching closely. She had always admired her father's problem-solving skills. He was the one who taught her how to ride a bike, how to tie her shoes, and even how to read simple maps. Now watching him fix a car, she felt a sense of pride. Meanwhile, Emily, standing beside the truck, couldn't help but feel a little nervous. It was not every day that a stranger offered to help so freely, and there was something calming about David's presence. His calm demeanor and genuine kindness were noticeable, and she found herself smiling despite the stress of the broken car. "Are you sure you don't mind?" Emily asked. David shook his head. "Not at all. It's no trouble." Within a few minutes, the battery cable was secured. David wiped his hands on a rag and gestured for Emily to try starting the car again. She inserted the key and turned it. The engine roared to life, purring smoothly, and Emily's face lit up with relief. "Oh my goodness. You did it. Thank you so much," Emily exclaimed, her eyes shining. Emma clapped her small hands enthusiastically. "Yay, you fixed it, Daddy," she cheered. David laughed. "We make a good team, don't we?" he said, looking at Emma. Emily's smile widened. "I don't know how to thank you enough. You really saved my day." David shrugged modestly. "I'm just glad I could help." He glanced at Emma, who was still smiling and bouncing slightly with excitement. "She loves cheering people on," he added, Emily laughed, a soft melodic sound. Well, she's adorable, and it's nice to see someone so helpful and kind. It's rare these days. The three of them stood there for a moment, the morning sun casting a gentle glow over the scene. David noticed the way Emma's eyes lingered on Emily, the curious admiration of a child. Emma had always been quick to trust people with a kind heart, and something told David that this encounter would be more memorable for her than just a simple car repair. Emily straightened up and brushed her hands on her jeans. I think I can manage from here, but I really appreciate your help. Would it be too much to offer you a coffee as a thank you? David raised an eyebrow, glancing at Emma. The little girl's eyes sparkled with curiosity and excitement. Coffee sounds nice, David said finally. Emma clapped her hands again. Can we go too, can we? David laughed softly. Of course, you can come along. The three of them walked to a small cafe just a few blocks away. Emma ran ahead, pointing at flowers and birds along the way, her laughter ringing through the quiet streets. Emily followed with a smile, clearly enjoying the child's innocent energy. David stayed close behind, feeling a small but comforting warmth in his chest that he hadn't felt in a long time. Inside the cafe, they found a quiet corner table. The smell of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air. Emma immediately picked out a chocolate muffin, while David and Emily ordered their drinks. Conversation flowed easily, starting with small talk about cars and work, but slowly moving toward personal stories. Emma, curious as always, asked Emily about her favorite animals, her favorite colors, and even about her childhood. Emily answered with patience and gentle humor, making Emma laugh repeatedly. David watched quietly, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized how much Emma craved positive role models and kind hearts in her life. By the time they finished their coffee, David noticed a small, subtle change in Emma. She had developed a quiet attachment to Emily, a little spark of admiration and trust that only a child could feel so freely. When they finally left the cafe, Emily waved goodbye to Emma, and the little girl waved back enthusiastically. See you later, Emma called out. Emily smiled warmly. See you soon, Emma. As David and Emma walked back toward their truck, he glanced down at his daughter. You seem very happy today, he said. Emma nodded vigorously. I like her, Daddy. She's really nice. David smiled, feeling a flutter of hope in his heart. In a world that had been quiet and lonely for the past 2 years, he realized that maybe, just maybe, this chance encounter could change everything. Little did David know, this simple morning act of helping a stranger would become the first chapter in a story that would touch all their lives, in ways they could never have imagined. The days that followed the morning at the broken-down car were quiet but full of small, meaningful moments. David found himself thinking about Emily more often than he expected. It wasn't just her smile or the way she thanked him politely. It was something deeper. She carried a kindness that seemed rare in the world, a calm confidence that made those around her feel safe. Emma, too, remembered Emily vividly. She often talked about her when they were alone at home, showing David the little sketches she drew of the woman. Daddy, she has the prettiest eyes. And she smiled at me, Emma said one evening as they did homework at the kitchen table. David smiled softly, stirring the coffee he always had beside him. She's very nice, Emma, he said. I'm glad you liked her. Emma beamed. I hope I see her again. David chuckled, but he didn't say much. He wasn't sure if Emily was looking to meet them again, but he quietly hoped she would. There was something comforting about the idea of her presence. A week later, while David was at work, Emma returned from school with a bounce in her step. She held David's hand tightly as they walked toward the truck. Daddy, she's outside the park, she shouted excitedly, pointing toward a woman sitting on a bench with a small bag beside her. David squinted in the sunlight. Emily was there, looking around as if she were waiting for someone. Her blue sweater caught the morning light, and her brown hair fell loosely around her shoulders. When Emily spotted them, she waved and Emma ran forward, almost knocking David over in her excitement. Emily, you came, Emma exclaimed, hugging her tightly. Emily laughed softly, hugging the little girl back. I promised I'd come by. I couldn't resist seeing you again, Emma. David smiled from behind them, feeling a warmth in his chest. He waved as Emily turned toward him. Hello again, David. I hope I'm not interrupting anything, she said politely. Not at all, David replied. We were just heading out to the park. Emma has been talking about coming here all week. Emily stood and followed them as Emma ran ahead to the swings. The park was filled with the soft laughter of children and the distant hum of morning traffic. The air smelled faintly of flowers and freshly cut grass. As they reached the swings, David noticed the way Emily interacted with Emma. She didn't just watch. She engaged, asking Emma questions, listening to her stories, and laughing at her jokes. Emma felt completely at ease, telling Emily about her favorite animals, her school friends, and even the small adventures she had with her father. David sat on a nearby bench, observing quietly. There was a subtle bond forming between Emily and Emma, one built on trust and simple kindness. David felt a pang of emotion he hadn't experienced in a long time, gratitude, relief, and a tiny spark of hope that life could still surprise him. After a while, they moved to the park's walking path. Emily suggested a small picnic, and David had packed sandwiches and juice boxes for the three of them. They found a quiet spot under a large oak tree. Emma immediately sat down on the blanket, arranging her food neatly in front of her, while Emily helped her set up little cups for the juice. David watched the two of them interact and felt a sense of peace. Emily had a gentle way of listening, of asking questions that made Emma feel important. For a 6-year-old who had lost her mother at a very young age, this was priceless. As they ate, Emily shared stories of her childhood. She grew up in a small town not far from the city, with 2 older brothers who were constantly teasing her. She told Emma about her first school play, the time she tried baking cookies and ended up burning them, and the family dog she loved dearly. Emma listened intently, her eyes wide and sparkling, occasionally giggling at the funny moments. David, meanwhile, asked Emily about her work. She was a graphic designer, creative and detail-oriented, with a natural talent for turning ideas into beautiful images. David admired her focus and dedication, but he also noticed how humble and approachable she was. She didn't boast about her work. She simply shared it with a quiet pride that made him respect her even more. "You're really good at what you do," David said sincerely. Emily smiled, a soft, thoughtful smile. "Thank you, David. I like my work. It keeps me busy, and I enjoy helping people see beauty in small things." Emma, curious as ever, interrupted. "Emily, can you draw me like a princess sometime?" Emily laughed. "Of course, Emma. I'll make the most magical princess drawing you've ever seen." The little girl clapped her hands, thrilled. David chuckled, watching the joy on her face. After lunch, they walked along the path, enjoying the warmth of the sun on their faces. Emma ran ahead to chase a butterfly, then returned to Emily, who patiently let her explain every movement of the butterfly and how it landed on the flowers. At one point, David had to pause and tie his shoe. When he looked up, he saw a small moment that made his heart swell. Emma had reached for Emily's hand, holding it gently as they watched the world around them. Emily smiled down at her, kneeling slightly so she was at the same height. "What do you see, Emma?" she asked softly. Emma pointed to a bird perched on a branch. "Look, it's singing so loudly." "I think it's happy," Emily nodded. "Yes, it is. And I think it's happy because it has a safe place to rest, just like you and me have each other right now." Emma tilted her head, thinking. "So, you're happy too?" Emily smiled warmly. "I am. Being here with you and your daddy makes me happy." David, who had been watching quietly, felt a strange but wonderful emotion. He had always believed in kindness, but he had not expected that helping a stranger with her car could lead to this. A connection forming so naturally, so effortlessly. As the afternoon sun began to lower, Emily stood and brushed off her jeans. "I should probably head home soon," she said reluctantly. Emma's face fell slightly. "Already? Can't you stay a little longer?" Emily crouched down to her level and smiled. "I promise we'll see each other again soon, Emma. I had a wonderful time today." Emma hugged her tightly. "I like you," she whispered. "Can you be my mommy?" David froze, his heart skipping a beat. He had not expected such direct words from his daughter. Emily blinked, caught off guard, but she felt a warmth in her chest she had never anticipated. "Oh, Emma, that's very sweet," Emily said gently. I don't know about being a mommy yet, but I like spending time with you a lot." Emma's face lit up, completely satisfied with the answer. She hugged Emily again and whispered, "That's okay. I like you anyway." David felt a lump in his throat. His daughter, so young and innocent, had already found a piece of her heart in this kind, beautiful woman. David didn't know what the future would hold. but he knew this was the beginning of something meaningful. As they walked back toward the street where their car was parked, David noticed the ease between Emily and Emma. The little girl ran ahead, laughing while Emily followed at a relaxed pace. David walked behind, smiling quietly to himself. He realized how important it was to let people into their lives, even if just a little at a time. Before they parted ways, Emily turned to David. "Thank you for letting me spend time with you both today." "It was special," she said softly. David nodded, feeling a strange mixture of hope and nervousness. "Thank you, Emily. I think Emma and I are both glad you were here." Emily smiled warmly. "We'll see each other again soon, I promise." As she walked away, David watched her go, holding Emma's hand tightly. The little girl looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Daddy, she's really nice," Emma said simply. David smiled, lifting her into his arms. "Yes, she is. And maybe, just maybe, she's someone special for all of us." The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the neighborhood in golden hues. David realized that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, like helping a stranger with a car, could spark the most unexpected, beautiful changes in life. And for David and Emma, Emily's presence was already beginning to feel like a gift they never knew they needed. The weekend arrived, and David had planned a small outing for him and Emma. He wanted to make it a special day, a break from the usual routine of school, work, and household chores. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood, and the air was filled with the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming flowers. Emma was particularly excited because David had promised they could feed the ducks at the nearby pond, a favorite activity of hers. As they walked to the truck, Emma held her father's hand tightly. "Daddy, can we see Emily today?" she asked eagerly, bouncing with excitement. David smiled gently. "I don't know, Emma, but maybe if we're lucky we might run into her." "Why do you want to see her so much?" Emma looked up at him, her eyes wide. "Because she's nice and she makes me happy. And I like her." David chuckled softly. His little girl had a heart that noticed kindness wherever it appeared, and he admired that about her. "Okay, we'll keep an eye out for her," he promised. They drove to the park, the car windows down to let in the fresh spring air. Emma leaned forward in her seat, scanning the paths and benches for any sign of Emily. "Do you think she's here already?" she asked, her voice full of anticipation. David shook his head, smiling. "I don't know, but we'll enjoy the day anyway." As they arrived at the pond, a soft breeze ruffled the trees and caused ripples on the water. Ducks swam lazily, quacking softly as they approached the edge of the pond, hoping for a snack. Emma ran ahead with her little basket of breadcrumbs, scattering pieces on the water's surface while David followed at a slower pace, enjoying the sight of his daughter's joy. "Look, Daddy." "They like my bread," Emma shouted, clapping her hands. David laughed. "They certainly do, Emma. You're very generous with your treats." Emma giggled and turned to look at her father. "Daddy, maybe we can meet Emily again while we're here. She might like the ducks too." David smiled. "Maybe," he said, though he had no idea if Emily would actually come. But the thought of Emily enjoying the simple pleasure of feeding ducks with Emma warmed his heart. After a few minutes, as they continued walking along the path, David noticed a familiar figure sitting on a bench under a large oak tree. His heart skipped a beat. It was Emily reading a book while keeping an eye on the pond. "Daddy, look, it's Emily," Emma shouted, running ahead excitedly. David jogged after her, a smile spreading across his face. "Well, what a wonderful surprise," he said softly. Emily looked up and smiled warmly when she saw them. "Hello again, Emma. Hello, David," she said, waving. Emma ran to Emily and hugged her tightly. "I knew I would see you again," she exclaimed. Emily laughed softly and hugged Emma back. "I'm glad you did. It's a beautiful day to be outside, isn't it?" David approached, feeling a strange but comforting sense of familiarity. "It's perfect weather," he said. "We didn't expect to see you here, but it's a very happy coincidence." Emily shook her head with a small smile. "I like coincidences like this. They make life feel brighter." For the next few hours, they wandered around the park together. Emily joined Emma and David at the pond, helping Emma toss breadcrumbs into the water while laughing at the ducks' funny behavior. The little girl's excitement was contagious, and even David found himself laughing more than he had in weeks. At one point, Emma spotted a butterfly fluttering near a flower patch. She pointed and ran toward it. "Look, Emily. It's so colorful." Emily knelt down beside her, watching the butterfly's delicate wings dance in the sunlight. "It is beautiful," she said softly, "and it reminds me that small things in life can be wonderful if we take the time to notice them." Emma nodded seriously. "I think the butterfly is happy too," she said. Emily smiled at the child's innocence. "Yes, Emma, and we can be happy too just by noticing the little things." David watched them from a short distance, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. There was something incredibly special about seeing Emily and Emma interact. The ease, the laughter, the gentle care Emily showed toward his daughter. After a while, they found a quiet spot under a tree and sat down on a soft blanket David had brought. Emily unpacked a small notebook from her bag. "I like to draw when I'm outside," she explained to Emma. "Would you like to see?" Emma's eyes lit up. "Yes, please." Emily opened the notebook, revealing sketches of birds, flowers, and small animals. "These are some things I've noticed in parks over the years," she said. "I like to capture moments that feel special." Emma leaned closer. "Can you draw me too?" Emily smiled warmly. "Of course, Emma, you can be a princess today." Emma giggled and posed, pretending to hold an invisible crown on her head. Emily began sketching carefully, and David watched in quiet admiration. There was a softness in her movements, a patience that made Emma feel important and cherished. As Emily sketched, they talked about their lives. David shared small stories about Emma's school adventures, her love for reading, and her curiosity about the world. Emily listened intently, asking questions and laughing at the little girl's funny moments. Emma, curious as ever, asked Emily about her work. Emily explained that she was a graphic designer, creating illustrations for books and websites. "I like to tell stories with pictures," Emily said. "It's like painting a little bit of happiness into the world." Emma's eyes sparkled. "I want to do that too someday." David smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. "You can do anything you set your mind to, Emma," he said. Emily nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. You just have to believe in yourself and never give up." Time seemed to pass quickly. The sun moved lower in the sky, casting golden light across the park. Emma, tired but happy, rested her head on Emily's shoulder for a moment. "I like being with you," she whispered. Emily looked down at the little girl, touched by the sincerity in her voice. "I like being with you too, Emma," she said softly. David felt a lump in his throat. His daughter had endured the loss of her mother, and yet here she was, finding comfort and happiness in someone new. He realized how important Emily's presence had become, not just for Emma but for him as well. As they packed up to leave, Emma held Emily's hand tightly. "Can we do this again soon?" she asked. Emily smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "Of course, Emma, I'd love that." David and Emily exchanged a look, both understanding that their lives were beginning to intertwine in ways they hadn't expected. There was a quiet acknowledgement of something unspoken, a bond forming, built on trust, kindness, and shared moments of happiness. On the way home, Emma chatted nonstop about the ducks, the butterfly, and her excitement over the sketch Emily had made of her. David glanced at Emily, who was walking beside them, smiling at the little girl's energy. "You're very good with her," David said quietly. Emily's eyes softened. "She's easy to like. Emma is kind and curious and full of life. It's impossible not to care about her." David nodded, feeling a sense of relief. For the first time in a long while, he felt like maybe they could all be happy again. There was no rush, no pressure, just a quiet, growing connection. That evening, after tucking Emma into bed, David sat quietly in the living room, reflecting on the day. He thought about Emily's presence, her patience, her warmth, and how naturally she had connected with his daughter. He realized that helping a stranger with a car had been the beginning of something unexpected, something beautiful. Emma's words echoed in his mind. "Can you be my mommy?" They were innocent, simple, but they carried a depth of emotion that touched him deeply. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing. Emily had become important to both him and his daughter, and he hoped she would remain a part of their lives. As he finished his coffee and looked out the window at the slowly darkening sky, David felt a quiet hope. Life had been difficult, but maybe, just maybe, it was beginning to offer him a second chance at happiness, one filled with laughter, love, and shared moments with the people who truly mattered. And for Emma, the spark of connection she had felt with Emily was growing stronger. planting seeds of trust and affection that would shape the days to come. The days turned into weeks, and a gentle rhythm settled into the lives of David, Emma, and Emily. What had begun as a simple act of kindness, helping a stranger with her broken-down car, had blossomed into a growing friendship, subtle yet powerful. David found himself looking forward to weekends when Emily could join them for small outings, while Emma eagerly counted down the days, her excitement impossible to hide. One sunny Saturday morning, David prepared breakfast for Emma, flipping pancakes carefully on the stove while she set the table. The aroma of syrup and warm batter filled the kitchen. Emma hummed a little tune, her brown eyes sparkling as she arranged plates and utensils. "Daddy, when is Emily coming today?" she asked, practically bouncing on her chair. David smiled at her eagerness. "She said she might come by after her morning class." "We'll see. But even if she can't make it, we'll have a wonderful day together." Emma tilted her head, thoughtful. "I hope she comes. I want to show her my new drawing." David's heart warmed. Emma had drawn a colorful picture of their family. A small house, their truck, the park, and of course Emily smiling beside them. "I'm sure she would love it, Emma. Why don't you bring it with you today?" Emma nodded excitedly, sliding the drawing into her backpack. By mid-morning, the doorbell rang. Emma darted to answer it, and there was Emily, standing on the porch with a bright smile and a small bag. Her blue sweater matched the morning sky, and her brown hair was slightly windswept. "Hello, Emma." "Hello, David," Emily greeted warmly. Emma threw her arms around Emily's waist in a tight hug. "I made something for you," she said proudly, holding up the drawing. Emily knelt down to her level, her eyes widening in delight. "Oh, Emma, this is beautiful. You even drew me." She gently touched the paper. "I feel very special." David smiled quietly, noticing how natural the interaction was. Emily had a way of making Emma feel important, valued, and loved. Qualities that David had hoped his daughter could experience again in someone new. "I thought we could go to the community garden today," Emily suggested, glancing at David. "It's a peaceful place, and I know Emma loves flowers." David nodded. "That sounds wonderful. Emma, are you ready for an adventure?" Emma clapped her hands and nodded eagerly. "Yes, let's go." The community garden was just a short drive away, filled with rows of blooming flowers, colorful shrubs, and small winding paths. Emma ran ahead, pointing at the tulips, daisies, and roses as she explored every corner. Emily followed her closely, crouching to admire the flowers and explaining their names and colors in a gentle voice. David walked slowly behind them, watching the two of them interact. He noticed the little gestures that made Emily special, the way she knelt to Emma's level, the way she encouraged the child to explore, the patience in her every movement. For a little girl who had lost her mother, this presence was invaluable. Emma's excitement was contagious. "Emily, look! This flower is pink like my jacket." Emily smiled warmly. "It is. And it matches your happiness, too. Look at that smile." "You're glowing," Emma giggled. "Thank you. You're nice to say that." David, observing quietly, felt a sense of relief. For months, mornings had been quiet and sometimes lonely, but now there was laughter and light filling their lives. Emily's presence had become a bridge, helping him and Emma feel connected to someone outside of their small family unit. As they walked along a small path, Emily suggested they sit on a bench near a small fountain in the middle of the garden. The sound of water trickling into the basin created a soothing atmosphere. Emma climbed onto the bench, pulling her legs close while Emily and David sat beside her. Emily reached into her bag and pulled out a small sketchbook and a pencil. "Emma, would you like to draw some flowers with me?" she asked. Emma's eyes lit up. "Yes, can I draw the fountain too?" "Of course," Emily said with a smile. "Draw whatever you see, and I'll draw right beside you." For the next hour, the three of them sat together, Emma drawing with careful strokes and Emily sketching alongside her. David watched in quiet admiration. There was something magical about seeing Emma so engaged and happy, learning from Emily's gentle guidance. The little girl's imagination was vivid, and Emily nurtured it without any pressure, simply sharing her skills and her joy for creativity. When they finished, Emily held up her sketch. "Look, Emma. We both captured the beauty of this place, just in different ways." Emma beamed. "I like yours, but mine is mine too." Emily laughed softly. Of course it is. And it's wonderful. David glanced at Emily and felt a surge of gratitude. Her patience, her kindness, and her genuine interest in Emma's happiness were exactly what he had hoped for in someone his daughter could trust. After a while, Emily suggested they take a small walk around the garden. Emma ran ahead again, excitedly pointing out every new flower, butterfly, and small insect she spotted. Emily followed at a measured pace, letting Emma explore while ensuring she remained safe. David walked behind, enjoying the peace and quiet of the moment. At one point, Emma found a small ladybug on a leaf. She carefully picked it up and held it out to Emily. "Look, Emily, a ladybug." Emily leaned closer, examining the tiny insect with a smile. "Wow, that's beautiful. And did you know ladybugs are considered lucky?" Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Then I must be very lucky today." Emily chuckled. "I think you are. Lucky to see the beauty in small things. Lucky to have people who care about you. Lucky to have this moment." David, walking behind them, felt a lump in his throat. He realized that Emily wasn't just kind. She understood the small joys of life, the moments that mattered most. She was teaching Emma lessons in happiness, patience, and love without even knowing it. Later, they found a quiet spot under a large willow tree. Emma curled up in Emily's lap, exhausted from all the walking and excitement. "Emily, can you read a story to me?" she asked softly. Emily nodded, pulling a small book from her bag. "Of course, Emma, let's pick a nice story." For the next 20 minutes, Emily read aloud, her voice soft and melodic. Emma listened intently, occasionally resting her head on Emily's shoulder. David sat nearby, his heart full, watching this scene unfold. The little moments, the laughter, the gentle touches, the shared stories, were building something far more important than he could have imagined. Trust, connection, and the beginnings of love. When the story ended, Emma yawned and snuggled closer to Emily. "I like being with you," she whispered. Emily hugged her gently. "I like being with you too, Emma." David felt tears prick at his eyes. His daughter had been through loss, and yet here she was, finding comfort and happiness in someone new. Emily was becoming a source of light in their lives, and he couldn't help but feel grateful for the chance encounter that had started it all. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the garden, they packed up their things and prepared to leave. Emma held Emily's hand tightly. "Can we come back again soon?" she asked. Emily smiled warmly. "Of course, Emma, we'll come back. I promise." David glanced at Emily, noticing the quiet understanding between them. No words were needed. Both of them knew that their lives were beginning to intertwine in ways neither had expected. There was a gentle trust forming, a promise of support, laughter, and care for one another. On the drive home, Emma chatted nonstop about the garden, the flowers, the ladybugs, and her excitement over the sketches. Emily laughed softly, answering questions and sharing observations of her own. David, watching them interact, realized that happiness wasn't about grand gestures. It was about small shared moments of joy, trust, and kindness, the little things that made life meaningful. That night, after tucking Emma into bed, David sat quietly in the living room, reflecting on the day. Emily's presence had brought warmth and light to their home, and he found himself hoping that their bond would grow stronger over time. He remembered Emma's words from weeks ago, spoken innocently yet profoundly. "Can you be my mommy?" Even now, the thought lingered in his mind. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing. Emily had become an important part of their lives, someone they both trusted and cared about deeply. As he finished his coffee and looked out the window at the starry sky, David felt a quiet hope. Life had been difficult, lonely at times, and full of challenges, but Emily's arrival had begun to change everything. There was laughter again, warmth again, and a sense of possibility that he hadn't felt in years. And for Emma, every day spent with Emily was a lesson in love, patience, and kindness. She had already started to trust Emily in ways that were rare for a child who had experienced loss, and that trust was growing stronger with each shared moment. The weeks after their garden visit had brought a quiet joy to David, Emma, and Emily's lives. The little family had settled into a rhythm, sharing weekends and afternoons together, exploring parks, drawing, and laughing. Yet life, as always, carried its challenges, reminding David that even moments of happiness required effort and patience. One Monday morning, David was driving home from work. The sky had grown heavy with clouds and a light drizzle had begun to fall. Emma was sitting in the back seat, humming a tune softly, occasionally glancing out the window at the wet streets. David's mind was occupied with thoughts of work deadlines and bills, but a small part of him was anxious. His truck had been making strange noises lately, and he worried that it might fail completely on this rainy day. Just as they approached a familiar intersection, the truck's engine sputtered and the vehicle slowed to a halt. David's heart sank. He tried to start it again, but the engine refused to respond. The rain was getting heavier and Emma's small voice broke through his worry. "Daddy, is everything okay?" she asked, her eyes wide with concern. David forced a smile, kneeling slightly so he could see her in the rearview mirror. "Yes, sweetheart. The truck just needs a little rest. We'll be fine." Despite his reassurances, he felt the weight of frustration and worry. Being a single father meant that there were no easy solutions when unexpected problems arose. And yet, he refused to let Emma sense the tension that threatened to overwhelm him. Meanwhile, Emily had just finished her morning work session. She had planned to meet David and Emma later in the day for a small picnic in the park, but as she checked her phone, a message from David appeared. "Truck broke down. Rain. Can you come? Need help with Emma too." Without hesitation, Emily grabbed her umbrella and bag, slipping on her raincoat as she hurried to her car. The rain had intensified, falling in steady sheets, but Emily didn't mind. She was used to small inconveniences, especially when it meant helping people she cared about. When she arrived at the side of the road, she spotted David standing next to the truck, umbrella in hand, while Emma clutched a small raincoat tightly around herself. David's face lit up when he saw Emily. "Emily, thank you for coming," he said, relief evident in his voice. Emily smiled, shaking off the rain from her hair. "Of course. I'm happy to help. Let's see what's wrong with your truck." Emma ran forward to hug Emily, ignoring the drizzle soaking her little jacket. "Emily, you came!" she exclaimed. Emily knelt down and hugged her back. "I promised I would. Don't worry, Emma. Everything will be fine." David felt a deep gratitude well up inside him. Emily's willingness to show up in difficult moments made her presence even more meaningful. It wasn't just the fun weekends or sunny days. It was her ability to be there when it truly mattered. They examined the truck together, though David quickly realized it wasn't a simple fix. The engine had started acting up days ago, and now it refused to cooperate. Emily watched quietly as David tried to diagnose the problem. "It looks like something might be wrong with the battery again," David said, frustration creeping into his voice. "Or maybe the starter. I'm not entirely sure." After eating, they decided to feed the ducks along the riverside. Emma scattered the crumbs carefully, watching the birds swim and quack excitedly. Emily crouched beside her, pointing out the different colors and patterns of the ducks' feathers. David stood nearby, observing quietly. He noticed the ease between Emily and Emma, the way Emily guided without pushing, how Emma looked up at her with trust and admiration. It was a connection he hadn't expected but deeply cherished. At one point, Emma looked up at Emily with wide eyes. "Emily, do you like spending time with us?" she asked softly. Emily smiled warmly, kneeling to be at eye level with the little girl. "I love it, Emma. Being with you and your dad makes me really happy." Emma's face lit up. "I like being with you too. I wish every day could be like this." David's heart swelled at the sight. His little girl, who had once been so quiet and reserved, now laughed freely, shared her thoughts openly, and expressed her feelings without fear. Emily had given Emma something he had hoped to find: a sense of safety, affection, and joy. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, Emily suggested they take a small walk along the riverside trail. Emma ran ahead, stopping to pick up wildflowers and show them to Emily. The little girl's enthusiasm was contagious, and Emily followed with patience and care, encouraging Emma's curiosity while keeping a watchful eye. At one point, Emma found a small, smooth stone by the water. She held it up proudly. "Look, Emily. It's shiny. Can we keep it?" Emily laughed softly. "Of course, Emma. It's perfect for remembering today." David watched quietly, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Emily's presence was no longer just a casual friendship. It had become a source of stability and love in their lives. She had proven herself not only through shared fun, but also through moments of care, patience, and understanding. Later, they returned to the picnic blanket, where Emily opened her sketchbook. "Emma, do you want to draw together?" she asked. Emma nodded eagerly. "Yes. Can we draw the ducks and the river?" Emily smiled and handed her a pencil. "Let's do it." For the next hour, the two of them sketched and colored, laughing quietly when mistakes were made and praising each other's work. David sat nearby watching and felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. Emily's gentle guidance and encouragement were helping Emma grow in confidence, creativity, and happiness. When they finished, Emma held up her drawing proudly. "Look, Daddy, we drew the ducks and the river." David smiled, feeling a lump in his throat. "It's beautiful, Emma. You're very talented." Emily nodded in agreement. "It really is, and I love how you've captured the joy in the scene." "It's perfect." Emma beamed, looking up at Emily. "You're the best, Emily." Emily's eyes softened. "And you're the best too, Emma. I'm proud of you." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they packed up their things. Emma held Emily's hand tightly, not wanting the day to end. "Can we do this again soon?" she asked. Emily smiled warmly. "Absolutely, Emma. We'll have many more days like this." David glanced at Emily, feeling a quiet hope. The bond between Emily and his daughter had grown into something special, and he realized that he too had come to care for Emily in a way he hadn't expected. There was an unspoken connection between them, a sense that their lives were beginning to intertwine in a meaningful, lasting way. On the drive home, Emma chatted nonstop about the ducks, the flowers, and her excitement over their drawings. Emily laughed softly, answering her questions and sharing her observations. David glanced at her, feeling a warmth in his chest. She had become more than a friend. She had become family. That evening, after tucking Emma into bed, David and Emily sat quietly in the living room. The day had been filled with laughter, shared experiences, and moments of care that had strengthened the bond between them. "You know," David said softly, "I never expected helping a stranger with her car would lead to this. To all of this." Emily looked at him, her eyes kind. "Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness lead to the biggest changes." David nodded. "I'm grateful. For you, Emily. For everything you've done for Emma and for being here for both of us." Emily smiled softly. "I'm grateful too, David. Spending time with you and Emma, it's become very important to me." They shared a quiet moment, the comfort and understanding between them filling the room. David realized that the hope he had been searching for, hope for his daughter, for himself, for a future filled with warmth, was now tangible. Emily had become a part of their lives in a way that was meaningful, loving, and lasting. In the days that followed, life settled into a beautiful rhythm. David, Emma, and Emily spent time together, exploring parks, creating drawings, sharing meals, and laughing. Emma's trust and affection for Emily grew deeper, and David felt a quiet peace knowing that his daughter had someone who cared for her unconditionally. One evening, as they were watching the sunset from their backyard, Emma looked up at Emily with wide, sincere eyes. "Emily, will you stay with us forever?" she asked softly. Emily's eyes glistened with emotion. She knelt down, holding Emma close. "I promise, Emma. I will always be here for you, and I will always care for you. You and your dad are very special to me." David watched silently, feeling a lump in his throat. He realized that happiness wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about showing up for one another, sharing kindness, and building trust and love in everyday life. Emily had shown that consistently, and he knew that both he and Emma were blessed to have her. As night fell, the little home was filled with warmth, laughter, and the quiet sense of belonging that comes when hearts connect. The challenges of the past, loss, loneliness, uncertainty, were softened by the presence of someone who cared deeply. And for David and Emma, Emily's arrival was more than friendship. It was a new beginning, a chance at love, trust, and the joy of shared life. Emma had found a safe place for her heart, and David had found hope for a future filled with warmth, laughter, and the possibility of family once more. As Emily tucked Emma into bed that night, the little girl whispered, "I love you, Emily." Emily's eyes glistened with tears of happiness. "I love you too, Emma. More than you know." David stood in the doorway watching the bond between his daughter and Emily. He felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and hope, Life had brought them together in a way that was unexpected, but it was perfect. The kindness that started with a simple act had grown into something far greater, a love that would guide them through every day to come. And in that moment, under the soft glow of the bedroom light, David realized that the future was no longer uncertain. With Emily in their lives, the family he had dreamed of, full of laughter, warmth, and care, was finally becoming real.